All right, so second objective here, we're going to make what's called a segmented bar chart to display the relationship between two categorical variables. So this is what a segmented bar chart is. So a segmented bar chart displays the possible values of a categorical variable as segments of a rectangle. Segments of a rectangle with the area of each segment proportional to the percent of individuals in the corresponding category. So you have looked at these type of bar charts, which are called side-by-side bar charts, side by side. Okay. So in this bar chart, what we're doing is we're trying to gather information about superpowers, right? So that was the response variable: invisible, super strength, telepathy, fly, freeze time, if you remember from chapter one. And we did not distinguish between male and female. Well, now, since we can have two variables, let's look at the male responses versus the female responses in a side-by-side bar chart, right? So, uh, how do we take that and make a segmented bar chart, which is this guy right here? Well, first off, we take the explanatory variable, which is our gender in this case, and we put on the x. So explanatory variable is your x. Our y-axis, which is in percent, that's going to represent our response variable. But notice your response variable is over here. This is your y's, and this is the key. And again, got to think of these segmented bars as going vertical, right? So y is in the vertical. So this is the key. All right. And now each of these bars reaches 100% because you are taking into account all of the female responses and all of the male responses, 100% of the females and 100% of the males. So if you take a look here, which response is the greatest for females? Well, that'd be telepathy, right? Well, look over here. In the female bar, which one is the biggest segment? Well, it's kind of close between telepathy and fly, but I would believe it's telepathy. And again, if you look at fly is very close, so is fly very close. Now, if I change colors, let's look at the males now. Which one is the biggest for males? Well, obviously it's freeze time. And look here, in this segmented bar chart, which one is the biggest segment? Freeze time. So it's kind of a neat way to show your data and compare it. All right. Okay, so let's take a look at, I think, more notes, right? So everything I just said is kind of going to be summarized in this slide here. So again, you need two variables: your explanatory and your response. This to me is the most important idea. So your axes, your explanatory goes on the horizontal, which is the x. The percent of the response variables, the response variable goes on the vertical axis, and again, that's your y, right? Each bar represents 100% of that explanatory variable. So again, for male or female. And then again, you have your key, and your key has to do with the response variable. All right, so this is example two. Who survived on the Titanic? In 1912, the luxury liner Titanic, on its first voyage across the Atlantic, struck an iceberg and sank. Some passengers got off the ship in lifeboats, but many died. The two-way table gives information about adult passengers who survived and died by class of travel. Make a segmented bar chart to display the relationship between survival status and class of travel for passengers on the Titanic. So again, wealth inequality, right? This is a political issue, a systemic issue, social issue. But we're on the Titanic, right? You had first, second, third class. First class have the nice rooms, usually on the top deck. Second and third class, they have the crappier rooms in the lull of the ship, close to the engines. You know, so when the ship started going down, if you remember from the movie, I don't know if you guys saw the movie with Leonardo DiCaprio, they actually started closing the gates so that the second and third class could not get up from their lower bowels. And again, the first class, since they're on the top deck, they got to the lifeboats first. So again, it's not fair. But what I'm trying to get at is that it is the class of travel that is the explanatory variable, or your x, that is explaining or helping predict whether you died, which is the response variable, your y. So we're going to make this on our stats applet, the two categorical. And again, we're just going to copy it exactly as it is. So let me take a picture of it real fast, and then we'll get right to it. All right, so let me get rid of this. Let me go to that stats applet. You might want to do this yourself as well. So we're doing the stats applet, statistical applets, two categorical. So our explanatory variable, again, I'll just copy what it says: class of travel. Our response variable is survival status. So my column names are first, second, and then I'm going to add a column for, oh, sorry, no, I'm going to add a column for third. You don't need a total column. Okay, that's just for your own well-being. And then my rows are survived and died. Don't need to add any rows. Again, don't need a total row. And now we just put in numbers: 197, 94, 151. Then across from died, 122, 167, and 476. Okay, and I press begin analysis, and there is my segmented bar chart. I'm going to take a copy of that, and I'm going to paste it into my notes. And again, what a segmented bar chart does is it shows you the disparages between your different explanatory variables. So if you look at first, second, third class, notice that the red, which is the died, increases as you go from first, second to third class. So that's very, very present right there on that nice segmented bar chart. So it's a cool way to display data. Okay, last objective is coming.